Focused on quality and convenience, there isn't much you won't find at Marie's Mini Mart. Home-style breads, sandwiches, plus a variety of artisan breads and delicious single-serve desserts available exclusively at our Frecker Drive location. Marie's Mini Mart, with 25 locations wherever you go, there we are.
Hello, I'm Karl Wells, and welcome to Point. My guest today is Dr. Avrum Richler, a well-known Newfoundland and Labrador optometrist and lifelong learner. Avrum grew up in Montreal. In fact, he was born in Montreal, grew up there, but he's been in Newfoundland and Labrador for the past 52 years. What is your very first memory?
Very first memory is a very traumatic memory. My father had a small business. He sold tires. He had a shop. I could remember the tires on the rack. I could still smell them. And I remember being in the shop, sitting on the counter. I think it was 1930, and my parents were crying. The depression, he lost his business. And we had to leave our comfortable apartment. It wasn't very nice. It was quite a few years of being poor.
Right.
Yeah. But that's my first real memory.
What can you tell me about your mother and father? I understand your mother was very religious.
She was, yeah. My mother, you want to know? My mother?
Both of them, actually.
Well, my father was religious because his father was religious. I don't think my father really was that religious. My mother was. Her father was the chief rabbi of Montreal. Oh. But my mother was a very difficult woman, very difficult. My father was a sweet guy. Mm-hmm. They were different.
Yeah. So tell me about your home life. What was home life like for you and your younger brother Mordecai?
Well, it was rigid. We had certain things that we were not supposed to do. I remember once asking my father, "Why is it that you keep telling me what we're not supposed to? Tell me what I'm supposed to. Why is it always this is bad and this is bad and this is bad? Tell me something that's good." It wasn't, I mean, we were kids, you know, this is the way it was. But as I aged and as he aged, we realized, you know, there's something better than this.
What was Montreal like? Because you grew up in the 1930s. What was it like growing up in Montreal?
Well, we had our own community. It was called the Plateau. And just about everybody there was Jewish. It was like a little shtetl. We didn't know any different. We had...
People spoke Yiddish?
Pardon?
Did people speak Yiddish?
The older people did,
yeah.
the grandparents. See, there were three really generations. There were the grandparents who escaped from Europe, and then there were their children. This was the second generation, who weren't born in Canada. They probably came as infants like my father. And then there were the third generation. We were the real Canadians. So our grandparents had ambitions. Our parents tried to realize the ambitions, and their children, our generation, did realize. Hopefully, most of us did. You know, I don't know if you ever read The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz, my brother's book. Do you remember the grandfather poking holes in the earth? And he told Duddy, he says, "You have to have land."
That's right.
Remember?
Yeah. You have to have land.
He had that done so well, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
but we had fun. I mean, you know, everybody was poor.
Yeah. What did you do for entertainment?
Oh, we listened to the radio. We played in the dirt because nobody had lawns. You know, lawns were for the rich people. We had a yo-yo or a bolo bat, and we Dick Tracy, Fibber McGee and Molly, that kind of the inner sanctum.
All the American radio shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we listened to, on Friday nights, we listened to boxing, Gillettes. And on Saturday night, we listened to the Montreal Canadiens.
Of course.
And if we had a few pennies, there were three of us boys. We were in our early teens, and we fooled around. You know, nobody ever got hurt. We just did boy things. But if we had 75 cents, we would go to the four. We get standing room for 75 cents, so we could watch them play.
Wow.
75 cents.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how it's different. My mother, I remember once my mother gave me 12 cents to get a dozen eggs.
Wow.
Well, it's a penny an egg.
A penny an egg.
Yep.
Yeah. During the 1930s, terrible things were happening in Germany. The Nazis were on the rise. It was just before World War I, and before World War I or World War II.
Yeah.
During World War II as well, Jewish people were being persecuted and murdered.
Slaughtered.
Was word of that getting back to Montreal, the Jewish community?
We didn't know. We heard that they were being, you know, Kristallnacht, you know, where they smashed windows. Well, we didn't know anything about concentration camps. Only afterwards, when the war in 43, 44, did we finally realize what was going on. And we've learned recently that our leaders like Churchill and Roosevelt, they knew, but they didn't or wouldn't do anything. What could they do? They you know, should they bomb the concentration camps? What for? You know? They needed bombs to kill soldiers. Right. We were expendable. We didn't know.
Yeah. What was the reaction when you did know?
Oh.
It must have been.
Yeah. It was
devastating.
Terrible. It's still devastating.
Sure.
And it hasn't changed, Carl. I mean, remember the Armenian genocide. What's going on in Africa? What's going on in the Middle East? People are still killing people in the name of religion. You know, Karl Marx said religion is the opiate of the people. Yeah. What's going on in the name of religion? It's terrible, but anyway, yeah. We didn't know.
Yeah. Tell me about your school years, your younger school years. What was it like going to school
it was fun.
In the 1930s in Montreal?
It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we enjoyed it. We had good teachers. It was different then, you know. Don't forget, we learned to read when we were 5 years old. We learned cursive writing. Kids today don't learn. Yeah. I enjoyed school. We had we were taught music. We had concerts. In high school, we had 12. We had to learn 12 subjects, including Latin.
Of course.
Which I hated, but which I realized was a good thing because it taught me a lot. I had a great math teacher, Mr. Saunders. He taught me math the way it should be taught. I enjoyed it. And of course, when I was in high school, the war started. So we were in the cadets. And then when I started university, we were in the Army, because at that time, if you were a university student, you could go to the COTC, Canadian Officer Training Corps. We were in uniform, and we would train every day. And in the summer, in my case, went to Camp Petawawa with the engineers. I learned how to build a Bailey Bridge and how to blow it up. I learned how mine laying and mine detecting. I learned different kinds of firearms and how to take them apart and fire them. We were busy at summer, and it was hot and terrible, and the flies were terrible, but this is what we did, and we were in uniform. And thankfully, in 1945, the war was over. I didn't have to go to war, but we were in uniform.
Just getting back to school, did you have any favorite subjects?
History.
Yeah.
History and math. Yeah, but history. I had a great history teacher. What was his name? Gosh. I can't remember.
It was a long time ago. I don't expect you to
he
remember
was good. He was good. We did ancient history, and we did European history, Canadian. We did history. And Mr. Henderson. Sometimes, you know. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a 93-year-old.
Now, you worked a number of different jobs
Yeah.
to save money to go to college.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of those different jobs you worked, and you must have had some interesting experience that you could relate.
My first real job, I used to have 15 or 16. I worked for at Grover's Knitting Mill, which was right next to the baseball stadium. And this was a great job because you could stand in the window and watch the ball games. I tutored. I worked at Eaton's in the basement selling menswear, in the fur department, putting fur coats into storage. And then I went at university. Yes, I was at university. I drove a taxi. Midnight.
I bet you met some interesting people driving a cab.
Oh, yeah. Midnight to 4 a.m.
Oh.
It didn't last long because
The witching hour.
It interfered with my schoolwork.
Yeah.
But I had one experience which was very interesting. We used to go to the train station to pick up soldiers. And they wanted either a prostitute or gambling or both. And we had places where we took them and got tips. I mean, I made a lot of money. I made more money in one day than my father made in a week. I mean, I made, good money. And one day this soldier came and he had a lady on his arm and he said, I want to go to Quebec City. She said, I got an exam tomorrow morning, to Quebec City. I want to, anyway, I didn't know what to do. I called my boss and she said, $200, go. So I did. And I took him to Quebec. He gave me and he gave me a $100 tip.
Wow.
Oh, and I got home at about 4 a.m., and of course I couldn't go to school.
Yeah.
My mother was frantic. Where were you? I was working. Anyway.
Did you tell her you'd gone to Quebec City?
I went to Quebec and back.
Okay.
And there were no superhighways then. This was a long trip, and it was winter.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that's one of my experiences. And I worked. I taught, I tutored, and I was a mentor in the summer camp. Yeah, things, I did something that I had to make money.
Sure.
My father didn't have any money.
So your dream was to study medicine, but it didn't work out. Tell me why.
Well, because at that time, McGill University, as many other universities, had a quota for Jewish students. They only accepted 6 students, and I didn't make it. And I didn't know anything about it. I was, what do you mean?
They would only accept six Jewish students
in a class of 100.
My God.
Oh yeah, that's the way it was. I mean, second-class citizens. So I said, went to second best. So I went to the University of Montreal, which is a Catholic Jesuit university. There was no problem there. I didn't realize it later. I could have done medicine there, but anyway, so I studied optometry, which was my second. See, I wanted to be an eye surgeon. Anyway, I did optometry, and I did very well. And I ended up better than an MD. I did a PhD in medicine here at MUN afterwards. So.
Yes, I know. Yeah. I called you a lifelong learner at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
And you absolutely are. I wasn't surprised when you said that you loved school.
School, I did. Yeah. I still, I miss it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you set up a practice, an optometry practice in Montreal.
Yeah.
But that didn't go all that smoothly.
No, I starved because I was in the wrong area. I was invited to set up a satellite practice in Labrador City.
Right.
From IOC. They needed somebody to do their safety, and that was really good. So I would fly up to Lab City for a week every month, and that's how I got a license to practice in Newfoundland. And then in 1967, Expo year, things didn't go well for me at home in my home life, and I decided to make a change. And I had an opportunity to buy a practice in St. John's, so I moved here.
What was the attraction? I mean, apart from the fact that you wanted to move out of Montreal,
Well, I liked it. Well, in Lab City, I met a lot of Newfoundlanders, and they're kind of nice people,
Yeah.
The attraction, I wanted to change, and I ended up here. And of course, my first reaction was, "Oh my God,"
Now, your first office was on Water Street, wasn't it?
On Water Street.
Yeah.
You know where Edwards Drugs was? Upstairs of Edwards Drugs.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I'm next door to Edwards Drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about the adjustment you had to make, because the Newfoundland culture, especially back then, I would say was in total contrast to anything that you were used to, wasn't it?
Completely untrue.
Yeah.
The Newfoundlanders and the French Canadians, the country French Canadians, are identical. They love smoking, they love beer, and they love to dance and have parties on the weekend. They're friendly. The French Canadians are friendly. The Newfoundlanders are friendly. They go out of their way to help you. No difference. I was amazed. No different. I had several experiences here that I would never have had. I came here in '67 and October 1st, and I needed a car. And I went to Terra Nova Motors, remember, behind the old hotel. I looked at a car. It was a nice car, and Sid Butler was the general manager then. He says, "You like that car?" I said, "Yeah, here's the keys." I said, "I don't have a bank account here." Take the car. When you have a bank account, you can come back and pay me. I couldn't get over it. He gave me the car. Wouldn't happen in Montreal.
No, I don't think so. So after being here for 52 years, and you're a Newfoundlander now for sure, you must have developed some fairly strong feelings for this place.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't move away. You stayed.
Here. Now, this is where I'm going to die.
Yeah. So just talk about, how you feel generally about.
Oh, I love it here. I mean, it's a small community, but people are nice. I know literally thousands of people. If I go to the mall, or I was at Costco yesterday, I don't know how many people come over to me and talk to me. I don't know who they are, but they know me because they were patients, I suppose. I recognize their faces, but
Well, the other thing too is you didn't confine your practice to St. John's, because I know people in Gander that
I was all over.
When I said I was going to interview you, they said, "Oh, Dr. Richler, he came here for years."
Gander,
Yeah.
I mean, the Burren Peninsula. I had an office in Barrystown.
Yeah.
I was all over, all over. I did a lot of traveling, all the way up the coast, as far west as Gander, Musgrave Harbor, all the way out to Greats Cove, everywhere. Carbonear, Bay Robbers.
Did you ever go back to Labrador, or?
No, in 1969, I think I realized I just can't do it. I was too busy. I just couldn't do it all, so I gave up Labrador.
Yeah, yeah.
But I liked it there because the beauty. Have you ever been to Labrador?
I have. I've been fortunate. I've been through all of Labrador, actually, the west,
the Aurora
Goose Bay, and the
Borealis,
coast, yeah.
Aurora Borealis in the winter, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
The flies were terrible, but
Yes, you don't want to be there in the summertime.
No.
At least not in Goose Bay. I've had experience with that.
Yeah.
In 1973, you had an interesting experience. You confronted Leonid Brezhnev,
that's right.
the leader of the former Soviet Union.
That's right, General Secretary of,
Yeah, tell me about that confrontation with
Well, what
Brezhnev.
happened was that we learned, tangentially, he had been in Cuba and he was flying back to Soviet Union, but he had to stop in Gander for refueling. So we heard that he was going to be in Gander. I said, gee, boy, at that time there were 11 dissidents from Leningrad. There were 11 Jews who were in prison because they wanted to escape. They were called the Leningrad 11. And there was also Solzhenitsyn, who was trying to leave. So I got 10 of us together in a hurry, and we made placards. One of my friends could speak Russian. He told us how to write in Russian, "Let my people go," And we decided we're going to go to Gander and set up a table with a petition and get people to sign, and never dreaming that this would work. But anyway, and I somehow the word got out, and I got a call from the Soviet ambassador's office. Don't go. You're going to have trouble. I didn't listen. And then we went, and the RCMP called me and said, "I understand that you're going to do this." I said, we could help. They met us at the airport, and they helped us set up tables. We had the petition. We got close to 1,000 signatures. We're marching up and down, hoping that Brezhnev would get this petition. And Don Jameson was the Minister of Fisheries, okay? And it was getting dark, and we figured, well, we're going to go home now. And George Baker, who worked for CBC then, Senator George Baker, came running over to me and said, get your coats on, go outside, the plane's landing. So we ran out, started screaming. And don't you think they got off the plane and came towards the fence? I said, oh my God, you know. There were snipers on the roof. CBC or somebody was there with movie. They were taking pictures of everything. And he came to the fence. I have a picture of him facing me.
Wow.
Yeah, well, yeah. And Don Jameson, they were loaded drunk. Yeah, they're loaded. I mean, you could tell. And the interpreter, what do you want? I said, well, Mr. President, you know, this is what we want. They're all criminals. Go home. And they turned and walked away. Okay, so we went into the airport to go to have...
You got a drunken response from a drunken Soviet.
So we went back. We were happy. I mean, you know, we went and had something to eat before we get on the plane. The phone started ringing. Come to the air, come to the phone. People were calling. Somehow the word got out. And then George's wife, what's her name?
Avrum.
Avrum came running over to me. The ambassador wants to see you. Yakovlev, Alexander Yakovlev. He's the same guy who left. He was ambassador in Canada for 20 years. And he left and went with Gorbachev.
Oh.
He was a very important man. And he's standing there with his interpreter. I was nervous, you know. And yeah, what do you want? And he understood English, but he pretended he didn't in the end. And I said what we wanted, and he said, Dr. Richler, you don't understand power politics. I said, no, I don't understand power politics. But these people are not criminals. We would like this petition to be presented to Mr. Brezhnev. Here's my card. When the next time you're in Ottawa, come and see me. I still have his card. We had a picture taken, shook hands, and you know. Then George came running. Mr. Jameson wants to see you. I said, okay, but everybody has to be there. So all 10 of us went in, and there were other people in the room. And Don Jameson says, you heard what they said. They're all a bunch of criminals. And a man stood up, whom I didn't know. No, Minister Jameson, they are not criminals. They are criminals. And I said, who are you? I'm the head of the Russian desk in Ottawa, Canada. He was from Ottawa.
I'm a little bit confused. Did you say Don Jameson said they were criminals?
That's right. He said, Don Jameson, you heard what Mr. Brezhnev said. They're criminals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then Don Jameson said, give me the petition. I'll give it to Mr. Brezhnev, which he did. And we went home.
Wow. Wow.
It was quite something.
That's quite something.
And you know, I got phone calls from, you know, like Time Magazine. But it was the same day that Patty Hearst was arrested. So we didn't make the front page. But there was a lot of response, and it was quite exciting.
Yeah.
My 15 minutes of fame.
Before I forget, I have to ask you this question, because earlier on you mentioned as a little boy listening to the Montreal Canadiens on the radio. At one point in your short career in optometry in Montreal, you did get to fit some of the Montreal Canadian players.
Mario Lemieux, I think it was.
Yeah,
one of them, yeah.
You got to fit him with contact lenses.
Yeah, but they didn't work because in those days the contact lenses were hard lenses, and they fell out. But I did, yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, never got paid.
So as being like a Montreal Canadiens fan as a kid, did you get kind of a special kick out of that, being able to fit Mario Lemieux with
It was
contacts?
exciting, yeah. I remember what was more exciting to me was I met Dick Irvin, who was senior, who was the coach then, and he took me in. Yeah, that was nice. Yeah. That was nice.
I bet.
Yeah, I was young.
Yeah. You're in your 10th decade now.
That's it.
Do you have any thoughts on how you've managed to make it this far and in such robust health?
The male members of my family, of the Richler family, most of them have lived to be close to 100. One of my uncles just died 99. No, it's genes. Except my father died young, but yeah. It's the genes, I guess. And somebody once asked me, said, "How did you live to be so long?" I said, "I don't eat pork."
You probably don't smoke either.
I used to.
Did you?
Oh, 3 packs a day, yeah.
Yeah. What about alcohol? Do you ever have a drink?
I have a little nip once in a while. Before I go to bed, I'll have an ounce of scotch. Single malt.
Ah, of course. Looking back, is there anything you would have done differently in your life?
Oh, yes. A lot of things.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have made all the mistakes I've made. But you can't go back.
Yeah.
You can't go back, you know.
Yeah.
I'm happy. I have a wonderful wife. We've been married now for 30 years. She's a Newfoundlander. I have 5 great kids, and 11 grandchildren, and a bunch of great-grandchildren. I'm okay. But right now, I'm busy writing my memoirs.
Oh, that's going to be
And
interesting.
I have a novel that has been started, so we have to continue the Richler tradition of writing.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. I've written, well, I have written scientific stuff, Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure having this chat with you today. I know we could keep talking, but unfortunately we've only got
Thank you, Carl,
half an
for
hour.
asking me. And
You're welcome.
see you again soon. Keep well.
I will. I'll try.
Okay.
And that is this edition of Karl Wells' Point to Point. Thank you for watching.
If you want convenience, Marie's Mini Mart is here for you. A one-stop shop for a variety of products, home-style breads, sandwiches, plus check out our freshly baked artisan breads and single-serve desserts exclusively at our in-store bakery on Frecker Drive. With 25 locations, wherever you go, there we are.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
We got a mission.
That sounds like the bad guys teaming up.
It's only just begun.
Whoa.
Blood in the urine is the most common symptom of bladder cancer. Don't ignore this warning sign, not even once.
Hello, this is Gary Weaselton of NL Now on Rogers TV, and you can catch me and the gang Sunday nights at 6:30 for stuff like this.
I wish you were home to stay.
In the children's garden, a journey to the other side.
NL Now, right here only on Rogers TV.